The on-again, off-again relationship between the U.S. and Iran, well, it is like a Hallmark movie with bigger consequences.
That's right. What you're seeing now is this get-together between the Iranians and the United States that was supposed to be occurring on Friday. Yesterday, the United States was calling off their plan to be meeting in Istanbul with Iran.
We need to back it up. For those who maybe weren't listening earlier in the week, there was conversation between President Trump saying, look, we're going to meet. We're going to actually sit down and do this because Iran had started to really kind of push saying, a regional war is bound to happen if we don't really come up with a deal. America kind of called their bluff a little bit.
And that is with the U.S. having an entire carrier group very close to the Iran region where they could launch an attack from. Iran, as you mentioned, warned this could spark a regional war. And they were supposed to have a sit-down, a face-to-face negotiation between the Iranians and the United States in Istanbul this Friday, tomorrow. Yesterday, the Iranians started to make changes to the plan, saying, no, we are no longer going to meet in Turkey. We want to meet in Oman. We no longer want it to be about the nuclear issue plus human rights plus ballistic missiles plus our support of the proxy groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen. We just want it to be about the nuclear issue. So the United States said, okay, fine, we're not meeting. By the way, we told you, if we don't come to a deal on Friday or at least get somewhere,
you know what's coming.
We're going to bomb you. And then after major pushback from regional allies that probably don't want a war with Iran in their backyard, the U.S. has now agreed that they will move the location from Istanbul to Oman. Now, also think about that, the security involved, the all of the logistics of moving an entire different country where your talks were supposed to be held, Turkey, to a different country, Oman, in just a couple days. That's a headache at least. It's a game from the Iranians. But the U.S. has said they agreed to hold meetings in Oman and that it will be respectful to the allies in the region and in order to continue pursuing the diplomatic track. Now, what we don't know, what the agenda is going to look like. Will the U.S. still insist that the human rights, the protesters, that's what all of this stemmed from, as well as the support for the proxy groups and the ballistic missile program? Are those things going to remain on the agenda tomorrow?
Well, let's hear from NBC News. This was a conversation with President Trump just yesterday.
Should the supreme leader in Iran be worried right now?
I would say he should be very worried, he should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us.
I know they are, but the protesters have said, where are the Americans? You promised them we would have their back. Do we still have their back?
Well, we've had their back. And look, that country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear.
So that's the question. If we wipe them out,
we have peace in the Middle East. Yeah. If I didn't take out their nuclear, think of it. If we didn't take out that nuclear, we wouldn't have peace in the Middle East because the Arab countries could have never done that. They were very, very afraid of Iran.
Interesting, almost antagonistic approach from NBC News a little bit there.
Surprise.
Or just more, maybe it's more conversational. But, pushing President Trump on these issues, saying where the people are saying, where's the United States? I do think there's a discussion point to be had of how far you take this.
When you hear this reporter from NBC saying, should the supreme leader be worried right now? On June 21st, The Atlantic wrote a piece by David Frum that was titled, What Iran Knows About Trump. And the subtitle was, The Mullahs of Iran Joined the Bet That Trump Always Chickens Out. The next day, their nuclear sites were decimated by those B-52 bombers that went in Operation Midnight Hammer. So I feel like the Ayatollah and the mullahs in Iran are coming to this negotiation with a different context. That being said, they're still playing games, moving the site 2 days before, saying things are off limits with negotiation. I feel like they should be a little bit more apprehensive based off their last round of talks. But here's the question I have for our audience.
Okay.
If the president agrees to only a nuclear issue negotiation, and they come out of this agreeing to get rid of their entire nuclear program, we know the Iranians are patient because they will wait as long as they can to build up that arsenal, and with their end goal, destroying Israel, destroying the United States, if they can attempt that. Are you fine with sidelining the issue of the human rights for a more America first policy of like, yeah, they don't have nuclear power. They can deal with themselves.
It's less of a stress
Or
on you.
is it concerning that what got us here again is something that we have been calling for a long time, the liberation of the Iranian people. We've been upset with what Obama's deal did in propping up the regime longer. It was a terrible deal. But would you trade a non-nuclear Iran for at least a long time where they have to hit complete reset buttons, start at zero if they are wanting to build up a nuclear program? Would you trade that for leaving them in power for longer? Or would you like to see a more aggressive campaign that ends up ousting the mullahs?
There are two constants when it comes to this current Iran regime. One is they are seeking money constantly to fund terrorism. That's a constant. And two, they are really politically stupid when it comes to diplomacy. They always trip up. And I think it's because they're just not strategic and they misread the situation and they're self-indulgent. And so I think that we need to constantly think about diplomacy, run diplomacy to the very end. But remember, at some point, to keep America safe, and when the diplomats are not able to forge an agreement, you have to take that Iranian file and hand it over to the Pentagon, and then the Pentagon doesn't negotiate. If that comes to the case and diplomacy fails, I think that we can absolutely say we've tried everything. We keep trying different angles. But also, President Trump is not going to make some weak deal like the JCPOA. President Trump has been very clear that that deal made America less safe.
One comment said, if you take a murder weapon away from a murderer, they will find another weapon to use. That basically the Iranians and their bad activities, especially with their proxy groups, them being behind the planning and execution of October 7th, and what we see around the world, their attempts at assassination attempts on U.S. soil, having fatwas out against our president, against Mike Pompeo, who's on this broadcast multiple times a week. Their bad activity won't end just by containing their nuclear program. And even if President Trump can get the best deal ever where every single bit of nuclear material and nuclear infrastructure is taken out of their country, we know that just begins day one for them, and they will find a way to start again because that is their ambition. That is their goal. So any deal that is a great deal of taking away that nuclear threat is still a delay. It's still kicking the can down the road as long as that regime is in power. The question is it worth it for the U.S. to take that deal and not have to go more active militarily?